Almost exactly 1 year ago, I played Undertale and Hollow Knight for the first time, and it completely changed the way that I look at gaming. Undertale was the first and only game I ever cried to, and the music and storytelling was just incredible. And as for Hollow Knight, its unrivaled atmosphere and incredibly dark, non-spoken story still fascinates me. But ever since I beat it, the idea of speedrunning the game was always in the back of my mind. Seeing my name somewhere on that leaderboard was a deep desire, but I kept it bottled up, as Silksong was just weeks away from its launch. However, I was just itching to give it a go that entire time, and it was showing. I fully converted my YouTube channel into a Hollow Knight speedrunning channel. You know, I was getting recognized on other creators' Silksong videos, which was incredibly surreal, even though I kept getting f***ing egoed. So after stumbling upon this video by CJ, I had an idea. How well could I learn Hollow Knight speedrunning in just a single week? Whoa. Hang on there. You know, I actually decided that the middle of my exam season was the perfect time to attempt this challenge. So why don't we cut this time in half? Actually no, let's give myself a single day to learn 9 areas, a ton of skips, so many minor optimizations, and give myself enough stress to probably have a heart attack in the middle of my exam. Let's begin. Now, despite being a Hollow Knight speedrunning channel, I've never actually speedrun the game. I know, I'm a fraud. So my first hour or so was simply spent watching some very helpful guides, particularly the one by Masker, so huge shout out to him. I was even making notes to help guide me along in the actual speedrun. So now, while I wasn't confident in my knowledge of the route or the skips, seeing as I had done zero practice, but at this point I was aching to at least try a run. So after spending an embarrassingly long amount of time setting up the auto splitter timer thingy, 2 hours, and changing the language to Chinese as it is slightly quicker than English, that's how you know I'm serious, I was ready to go. And it went exactly as you'd expect. The movement was horrible, I barely had any idea where I was going, and I messed up the first major skip of the run so badly, I somehow ended the timer. I mean, the exact notes I wrote down for that run was simply, shat the bed and completely panicked, ended up accidentally resetting the timer. What a tart. But wait, hang on a minute. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. Why am I obsessing over skips so much? And what the hell am I even trying to do here? Well, see, skips are what completely revolutionizes all speedruns. Google defines skips as a technique used by the speedrunner to bypass mandatory objectives, boss fights, or entire sections of a game. So in other words, if it wasn't for skips, speedruns would be a hell of a lot more boring and slow. So there were a ton of skips for me to learn, with this explosion pogo being one of the most difficult ones. It works like this. This enemy shoots out balls of something, and with precise enough timing, we can use the knight's nail to slash downwards and gain extra height from it. This is called a pogo. And then once the ball explodes, we can pogo on that explosion to get even more height. But why the hell is that useful? You know, it provides a tiny bit more height if there is a specific enemy in the area. Like, that doesn't really sound like it'd have much application. Well, you see, at this point in the run, my goal is to obtain the Mantis Claw item, which allows me to wall climb, which is pretty essential for beating the game. And regularly, I'd have to go all the way around Fungal Waste to obtain it in the Mantis Village. But as you can see, there is another way in that'd save a lot of time. But the wall I need to scale to get to this secret entrance is far too high. If only there was something I could gain extra height on. Wait a minute. By dashing in front of the thingy and down to the bottom of this cave, the blob it shoots out follows me in such a precise way that if I get the timing absolutely perfect, I can pogo on it to gain some extra height, and then pogo the explosion itself to complete the jump, entering this area and saving myself a boatload of time. However, mess up the skip and you could potentially get caught in the explosion, which is one of the only things in the entire game that does 2 masks of damage instead of 1. Silksong could never. And it's in such a high pressure situation, because by this point we are like 15 minutes into the run, so it's quite a big inconvenience to lose your run here, especially if I only have 1 day to execute my speedruns. So this skip gave me huge anxiety the entire day. And there is a ton of other cool and scary skips like this in the run. 2 others in particular are very terrifying, but again, I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'll leave them for when I start explaining the route. So yeah, run number 1, I messed up the explosion, because I didn't watch any tutorials on it for some reason, but it did give me the perfect excuse to now practice it for about 20 minutes, so I was far less likely to mess it up in an actual run. So surely that means I won't mess it up way later in the video, right? Guys. So after that, I played a quick game of Counter-Strike to relax myself. Wait, look out for like. I think it's Zeus time.
I can't shoot him. What the fuck are you doing?
So that I was finally ready to start my first proper run. The starting area is pretty simple. The only small optimization I can think of is that we start the run by accessing the inventory, which for some reason makes the night fall a lot quicker. This is what we call an inventory fast fall, and I'll be using it a lot in this run. But yeah, apart from that, it's just some small optimizations with nothing of note really, although it is worth mentioning that there is a scripted fall here that makes you stun locked for like half a second, and you can avoid it by jumping at the correct time before falling, but I think I pulled it off like once in the entire day, so it really isn't that important. Then once we leave King's Pass, we make our way into Dirtmouth, but as I was watching other speedruns, I was wondering, why is this speedrunner purposefully jumping? Because if you didn't know, jumping and walking actually provide you with the exact same horizontal speed. So what gives? Are they just doing this for fun? Of course not, this is a speedrun. There is no fun. For whatever reason, there's a hitbox in Dirtmouth to slow the player down. I guess so they can take in the scenery if this was their first time playing, but obviously that is a huge time loss. But luckily that hitbox does not stretch up into the air, and seeing as jumping gives you the same horizontal speed as regular walking, you can almost go just as quick as normal by simply spamming the jump button, meaning you're only actually slower when briefly landing on the ground in between jumps, saving you a huge amount of time. But there's no time to waste, so we simply keep going and execute one more inventory fast fall to make it into this Aspid arena, where we eliminate one of them and then do one of my favourite tricks of the run involving this dripstone. But why is this dripstone so OP? Regularly, it would take a long time to eliminate both of these two enemies individually. So a cool trick that the majority of top level runners do is jumping to bait this dripstone into falling. But many people don't know that you can actually interact with this once it is falling. So for example, you can hit it to the side to make it fall diagonally and hit anything in its path. And how do these two enemies spawn in? Diagonally. So although I've never managed to do it myself, with good enough timing, the runner can instantly eliminate 2/3 of the arena in one fell swoop. Anyway though, we can carry on the run until we kill the False Knight and unlock Vengeful Spirit with some more crispy movement before making sure that we sit at this bench. That way we can teleport back to the Forgotten Crossroads at pretty much any point by simply saving and quitting the game. Now, with our newly acquired Fireball spell, we can access Green Path, which is home to the dash ability, and honestly, there's not much to say about this place until we catch our first glimpse of the shore, where we must choose which skip to use. That's right, this one room has two separate skips to achieve the same goal. See, after we find the shore for the first time, we normally have to go all the way along the bottom of Green Path to continue the story. But a huge shortcut is right in front of us, but it's impossible to access without dash. Or is it? See, a lot of people know about the easy version of this skip, where you lure this nearby mosquito to just under this ledge, allowing you to pogo on it and save massive time. But a much quicker and more difficult version can do this same thing. See, if you come into this room with a little bit of soul, you can jump towards this ledge, and at the apex of your jump, by precisely turning around, you can fire 2 to 3 fireballs to the right, depending on your confidence, and just about edge your way up there, saving yourself a couple of seconds. And you know, I gave it a go, but yeah, so I just stuck to the mosquito one. Anyway, we make the final journey to eliminate Hornet, while making sure to take out the Vengefly King on the way for the Geo he drops. And now we can finally take advantage of that bench we sat on way earlier by quitting out of the game, relogging, and effectively teleporting across the map, where we can now make our way back into the Aspid arena again and into the fungal waste. Luckily now though, we can take a short mental break, because the only difficult part of this area is that explosion pogo I mentioned before, and nothing else really even bothers you, or at least it shouldn't, but I seem to be an acid magnet. But anyway, yeah, for this run I anxiously approached the site of the pogo and took the leap of faith. Yeah, do not get used to me first trying that. It was a huge stroke of luck. Back to the run though, it was now time to quickly drop into the Mantis village, obtain Claw for the ability to wall climb, and quit to Crossroads once more. It's here that we unlock the Forgotten Crossroads Stag Station and defeat the hardest boss of the run. Close one. Anyway, we can now purchase the Shaman Stone because it powers up the spell so much that it's literally faster to obtain all of the geo for it and go out of your way to purchase it than it is to not do that. So it's the only charm we use in any percent. It is that overpowered. So after equipping it, we free Sly the shopkeeper so that he can show up back in Dirtmouth, and then we kill ourselves? Yeah, by purposefully dying here, we can complete this impossible jump, but that doesn't make sense. How does dying allow us to jump higher? Is this some sort of secret mechanic? No! Have you learned nothing? See, past here is the Blue Lake, which leads to the resting grounds where the Dream Nail is located, which, of course, we need to beat the game. So in other words, we have to do this jump. But because of this little lip on the side, it would usually be impossible without double jump. But here is where our secret source comes in. See, when you die, you leave behind your shade, which you can, importantly, pogo on. So by luring your shade high up, you can dash on top of it, pogo twice to kill it, and return your full soul meter, while also gaining enough vertical height to make your way into the Blue Lake's transition. Pretty awesome. And this was the second of the 3 skips that I was worried about. But, I mean, looking back, I don't think it was that bad. I think I just sucked ass. Like, I genuinely do not know what I was doing. Like, holy shit. It is not that hard. Anyway, I eventually did it, which is the important part, meaning after a short platforming section, I had unlocked the Dream Nail. And from here, it is a mad dash to the most infuriatingly difficult part of the run. I killed a couple dudes on my way, grabbed some pre-routed journals and Hallownest seals for Geo later on, and even killed the big funny gold guy. But now it was time for one of the weirdest but coolest sequence breaks in the entire run, involving this piece of scenery. But what? How does this one vase save Hollow Knight speedruns? Well, you see, in the City of Tears, you need to complete this jump to progress to the next part of the run. But the problem is, you are expected to have double jump by this point in the game, so this jump would be impossible if it wasn't for this vase. See, a lot of people know that you can interact with the background objects in Hollow Knight, but I reckon a lot of you didn't know that you could pogo on them for extra height. So by jumping as high as you can and down slashing at the apex of your jump, you can get just enough height to clear this gap and remove the need to ever waste a ton of time getting the double jump ability. Anyway, I could distract myself with these cool skips and bugs as much as I wanted, but nothing stops the inevitable. What's interesting is that I see a lot of conversation about what is the most difficult boss in a Hollow Knight speedrun. Because for me, the answer is obviously clear. I mean, we can immediately cross out Grozmother and False Knight because, you know. And while there are some difficult bosses later on in the run, nothing even comes close to the Watcher Knights. Where do I even begin with these guys? First of all, there's 2 coming at you at once, which makes it impossible to heal, which isn't good for an any percent speedrun, as you're on 5 masks. They are insanely durable because you're meant to have upgraded your nail by this point in the game, so the fight can last up to like 5 minutes. Sometimes if the game just fucking hates you, it can throw a basically impossible to dodge combo at you. And there's even a bug on the version speedrunners play on, so sometimes instead of bouncing twice normally, they can just randomly stop, which really throws you off. I literally lost a run to this f***ing bug, and the only buff you get in the entire fight is the chandelier you can drop on their head above the arena to skip one of the 6 knights. I hate this boss with a passion. So after not 1, not 2, but 3 attempts in a speedrun, by the way, I finally completed this god-awful section and managed to get some Geo and free Lurian the Watcher, the first of the 3 dreamers we need to beat the game. Luckily though, after this we can relax for a bit. We get 1 more Hallownest seal and sell it to Lem before travelling to the King Station Stag and warping into Dirtmouth. Here we can sit down at the bench so we can TP back later and buy the Lumafly lantern from Sly, which means the Crystal Peaks are finally available to us. So after some more pretty relaxing platforming, we unlock ourselves ourselves the Crystal Heart and walk back to Dirtmouth for our final big scary skip of the run, which made me think, what is the hardest skip in a Hollow Knight speedrun? Because while there are many other terrifying and difficult skips, the Isthmus Tier skip is pretty much essential, but it looks extremely difficult. See, I have to get around this pool to continue my run, but it is coated in acid, and the only way to swim in acid is with Isthmus Tier. You get from defeating a boss in royal waterways, but that is way too far out of the way for a speedrun. So our only alternative is the Crystal Heart. So by walking up to the side of this wall and holding C dash at just the right time, I can shoot across the body of acid and straight into Fog Canyon. But this trick is hard. I had to pause the game during my speedrun just to watch a video on how to do it, and it still took me forever. If you hold it too early, you hit the wall. If you hold it too late, you go in the battery acid. And if you don't recover in time on the other side, which is a lot more difficult than it looks, you fall. Not to mention, this is very late into the speedrun, so the stakes and nerves are now incredibly high. But if you can brave your way through that, it's finally time for Umu. And if I'm being honest, this boss just sucks. It isn't particularly hard or anything, it's just boring. If you've had the pleasure of never fighting any % Umu, it's basically just wait while he's invincible, hit him twice when Quirrell deflates them, and cast a spell if you can afford it. Now just rinse and repeat that about 8 times and you're done. That's literally the entire fight. But hey, at least we have our second to last dreamer, meaning we are now very close to the end of the run. But it also means that we have to go through Deep Nest. And while it isn't that bad because we have Lumafly Lantern to light up the area, it still is pretty annoying because of the constant barrage of enemies randomly spawning in and mutating while you're trying to navigate these rooms in a very particular way. And all of the rooms look very similar, so I ended up getting so lost in this run that I once again had to pause the run and follow that any % tutorial from the beginning of the video. In fact, it took so long that the journey from the end of the Umu fight to the trap bench took 12 minutes. That's more than a third of the time of the entirety of the world record. Plus, it still isn't even over. We have a whole section to navigate covered in these insanely beefy enemies. So after just an extremely confusing extra 5 minutes, I had gotten to the final dreamer and freed the Black Egg Temple. So of course, after getting lost one more time on my way out because it's Deep Nest, I brought the Stag into Dirtmouth so I could crystal dash my way all the way into the Black Egg Temple and straight into the fight with the Fortunately for myself, this fight isn't as bad as the Watcher Knights, but it still is pretty difficult. And I did end up taking a death to him on this run, and I nearly even took 2. Because while he isn't that difficult of a boss, the game expects you to have some pretty good upgrades by now. But since we haven't increased our damage at all since the start of the run, except equipping Shaman Stone, it just takes forever. So yeah, this fight can also last up to like 5 minutes, making it a huge time loss if you die. Plus, once again, this is an older version of the game, so he can have a similar bug to the Watcher Knights, where he just does an awkward hop without any sort of telegraph, which is extremely weird and throws you off. Sometimes he can even do it really far, which can be pretty fatal. After everything though, I finished out the run with a final time of 1 hour, 22 minutes and 47 seconds. Not bad, but at this point I begun to face the reality of how enduring I would have to be for this challenge.
Oh my god, that's such a grind.
But you know, I now knew everything I needed to know, and I also knew exactly where I needed to improve. So yeah, while I could have spent some time practicing the Deep Nest route, or maybe the fight with the Watcher Knights, I just decided to boot up another run. And this one was pretty embarrassing to say the least. I missed the fireball skip in Green Path, fell in the acid, and I just wasn't thinking at all, so I ended up killing the mosquito that I needed for the backup strat. Yeah, that run just doesn't count, okay? We don't talk about Speedrun 3 in these parts. But my 4th run, that one went good. I could already tell I knew the route much more than I did before. My only proper mistakes was that I was only slightly slower getting dash. I really messed up the Vase Pogo in City of Tears for whatever reason. And Deep Nest, yeah, just all of Deep Nest really. But I did the Explosion Pogo first try, the Shade Skip first try, Watcher Knights in 2 tries, and same with the Isthmus Tier skip. Meaning I could finally wrap up the run by defeating the Hollow Knight first try for a final time of 1 hour, 6 minutes, 6 seconds and 66 milliseconds. So it was here I decided on my goal for the day.
Ooh, I'm getting there, bro. Yo, that's my goal for the day. By the end of this 24 hours, I want sub-hour. I need sub-hour. I need it, bro. I I need it, and I don't have that long left, so I gotta do this. But at this point, the Watcher Knights were really annoying me, so I decided I would do another run. And if I did the Watcher Knights first try, then great. But if I died, I could stop the run and practice the Watcher Knights as much as I wanted. So yet again, I booted up a run, where it took me about 3 tries to do the explosion pogo. At least I didn't take any damage. Shade skip was first try. And before I knew it, it was time to face the Watcher Knights. I actually did it. First try. That's it. The race is on. I knew if I could finish this run on good pace, the sub-hour was possible for me. And I was flying through every single split. I only took 1 small death before making my way to the acid skip and first trying Umu. Even Deep Nest, I was absolutely flying through. I was so ready to beat my target of sub-hour pretty much immediately after I said it, until... What the f am I doing? What the fuck am I doing? Holy shit. When such a good run falls to something so dumb, it takes a huge toll on you. After this death, there was nothing I wanted to do really, except just quit the game forever and never come back. But unfortunately for myself, in a challenge like this, there's no time to slow down. Meaning I reluctantly booted up another run pretty much immediately after. But something about this run was different. I was hitting every skip I wanted. First try, I felt unstoppable, I felt immortal. I was golding every split, which means I was doing literally everything faster than I'd ever done it before. I was 3 minutes ahead of my PB, not even halfway into the run. If I kept up at this pace, I would absolutely thrash my goal. There was nothing that could stop me. Well, at least I can practice the nights now. And I kid you not, the second I stopped the speedrun, I beat them twice in a row and only failed on the 3rd attempt because I was trying to do it without healing. And 2 of them at the same time had that stupid ass dropping bug. And I still nearly did it. I mean, I've beaten Absolute Radiance, True Ending Igong from 9 Souls, Minos Prime from Ultrakill I beat in like 20 minutes. I beat the Roaring Knight from Deltarune without the Shadow Mantle and its modded counterpart, the Kaizo Knight, so these mid-game bosses should be nothing to me. So why couldn't I do it? I took a break for about an hour to clear my mind, and then I immediately came back. So after 2 quick runs where I had to reset, I was finally back on good pace. It's fine, it's okay. 1 death is fine. So by the pure power of determination, I stormed back in there and destroyed them. I mean, look at these splits. I was ready to beat the sub-hour. So I went to grab a journal for some Geo after the Watcher Nights, and I would love to continue joking about how ass I am or whatever, but these tiny deaths were really killing my confidence in this run, to the point where I was overthinking everything. Hell, I even lost a run to the explosion pogo after this. So I had to practice that. My goal just literally felt impossible. It felt hopeless, it felt like there was nothing I could do to make it happen. Until run number 12. This has gotta be it. Come on, man. I think that's definitely it. That's gotta be it. Woo! 59 minutes, 8 seconds.
Oh, would you look at that?
I had done it. Sub-hour had been achieved, even after an extremely slow death on the Hollow Knight. So, what did I do to finally celebrate this feat? I slept. It was a long day. But it was all worth it, because Yonan's flip-flop is officially top 1,000 in Hollow Knight any percent out of 1,059 people. So thank you for watching to the end. Only some people subscribed, and I subscribe, so please like and